Hello everyone, I am Deepthi and on behalf of Fiber to Fashion, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. The subject for today's webinar is Achieving Sustainability at Each Stage of Value Chain. And to discuss this, we have our esteemed panelists from various verticals of the industry. Mr. Naresh Tyagi, Chief Sustainability Officer from Aditya Birla Fashion Retail Limited, Mr. Anurag Gupta, MD Usha Limited, and Mr. Yawer Ali, MD AMA Herbal. I welcome them to our panel discussion today. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we all know, sustainability in the textile and apparel value chain is the most spoken topic post-COVID-19, the pandemic that has affected the entire global economy. And looking at the pre-COVID-19 landscape, I think it was clear that this momentum had already begun increasing around the need for a system reset with a visible consensus on the potential for a circular model. And I believe over the course of the last decade, several leading businesses have already stepped into and invested in this transformative path, with pioneering institutions and government bodies putting forward significant legislations in favor of these sustainability proposals to enable that kind of transition. And the current crisis makes the circular economy more relevant than ever, as it holds more significant answers to economically viable answers for the textile and apparel fashion industry. So I would like to have this panel discussion with all three of you, citing on the same topic of achieving sustainability at each stage of the value chain. So this brings me to my first question to Mr. Anurag Gupta. We see that the demand for sustainable or recycled yarns has been constantly rising. How do you foresee the share of recycled yarns in the next 10 years?
Before I answer your question in detail, I would like to explain to you that when you say sustainable oblique recycled, now recycled is a very small part under the whole umbrella of sustainable.
Right.
So sustainability would start from how the cotton is grown in the field, how the yarn is manufactured, how the fabric is manufactured, how are the dyes that are being used, how are the wastes that are being created, they are being disposed of, how is the garment being finally manufactured, how are the wastes that the garment is producing, garment manufacturing process is producing, how they are disposed of. So sustainability is a very broad subject, and within that subject, sustainable yarns is already there. It could be yarns made from organic cotton, it could be yarns where the cotton is produced in a fair way, how the yarns are dyed. So sustainable yarns, if you say, the market is already pretty big and it is already, the share is growing. I wouldn't be surprised that in the next 10 years, a greater portion of the yarn that is being made all across the country, 80 to 90% would be sustainable. Because sustainability per se is not something of choice. Today we may say that we want to choose sustainability or non-sustainability, but ultimately we don't have a choice. We have to take it up. We may delay it at our own peril, but ultimately sustainability has to be there in whatever we do. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 years time frame, 90% or 100% or 80% of the yarn belongs to the category of sustainable yarns. Now coming to recycled yarns. Recycled yarns can be of two types, One is recycling post-industrial waste, which is pre-consumer. Now, if you are recycling post-industrial pre-consumer waste, it could be from the spinning mill waste, it could be from the knitting waste or a weaving waste, or it could be a garmenting stage waste. Those yarns will be limited to the proportion of waste that is created. So you can never say that it will be 50% or 40%. the share would remain to the percentage of waste that is created along the process of making the garment. It could be 15%, it could be 10%, depending on the garment. The second important thing is post-consumer. Now, even if you come to post-consumer, I would like to bring to your attention that today, recycled polyester has become a norm, something which about 10 years ago was very coarse in quality and nobody would actually use it for garments, it would go for filling up toys. Everybody, every company, every brand, every spinning mill, every garment company, they are preferring to use recycled polyester whenever it comes to polyester in the garment. Recycled cotton or other fibers post-consumer is still under research and development. I can't say that we have reached there. We may be adding 5%, 10% to our virgin yarns, but I think it's going to be some time, but not very far, maybe 3 or 5 years time frame, when we will have economically produced, recycled, post-consumer cotton fibers or other materials. The day that happens, I think a huge share, just like recycled polyester, will go or shift to that segment of the market.
I think over last few years, we've also seen an increase into whoever brands and retailers are our clients also. They have consistently shifted for citing information more on recyclable yarns and recyclable fabrics. So a lot of
Exactly.
people are also talking about recycled acrylic or wool, which we believe are in testing stage as of now. They are not available at the commercial levels in market.
Yes.
But then a lot has been spoken about in the past few years that I've observed that the gradual shift that brands and retailers are doing is toward creating sustainable garments per se. So for that,
Correct.
also they want to make the millennial consumer fully aware of where the garment has been produced, what materials have gone into manufacturing of that material, what dyes have been used. So all of those details, I believe, have utmost importance now, and
Yes,
especially post
exactly.
COVID-19, I think it has also given us one way of getting back to the core idea of sustainability as such.
The sustainability is not a choice. We may think it is a choice, but it is not a choice.
Right, right.
We have to take it up.
Okay, so that brings me to my second question to Mr. Yawer Ali Shah. That do you think to push sustainability or to have sustainability accepted at a large scale, it is important to address stock level and markdowns by scaling new business models?
Sustainability, people expect it at a cost without anything extra. So definitely that is not possible. I'm lucky to have panelists like Dr. Naresh Tyagi, I know, a seasoned professional in sustainability area. So whenever you think of sustainability, obviously you have to do something extra. And when you're doing something extra, definitely that extra cost something more. And that something more has to be taken to the price, and that has to go to the consumer level. Here, obviously, I had certain other things in my mind as I come from the natural eye industry, but your topic has given a different area to talk about. So basically here, what I feel that over a period of last 1 decade or 2 decades, as we see, we are into the industry since 1996. And right from that time, people have been talking about eco-friendliness, not sustainability. That word was not popular at that time. They were talking just about eco-friendliness. Lately, it becomes sustainable. I think last 10 years, it's sustainable. And because sustainability covers 3 spheres, and that is economy, ecology, and environment. Whereas the eco-friendliness covers just one sphere, that is environment. So that's how the sustainability is getting priority, because it covers all the 3 legs.
Right.
And when we focus on all the 3 legs and we want to have a product that should be good, industries and corporate houses has been working extensively onto it. Every corporate house, I haven't seen any who has not focused onto this area. They have spent millions of dollars onto it, rather billions of dollars into it. Huge education programs has been run at every stage of the people. They may be garmenter, they may be processor, they may be textile mills, or even the suppliers of cotton. Everywhere the sustainability has been talked about, and they are being educated, and things are coming. But when the product is reaching to an end consumer, right now you just said something very, very important, which is a need of our. that post-COVID, the requirement of transparency has further increased. Actually, it was there even before, but now it has further increased because people have been doing and trying to work towards sustainability, but it was not understood by the consumer. So if it is not understood by the consumer, the extra efforts and money invested by the corporates cannot be captured by means of a price, because consumers doesn't know how much extra effort and money has been involved in achieving the sustainability. They just see a product which is having a tag of being 100% sustainable or produced out of sustainable products. It may be using natural dyes, it may be using organic cotton or the recycled goods. Everything has an additional cost to it. And they say, oh, this one is for 2,000 rupees, this is for 2,500. No, I'm not ready to pay. I can't pay to 2,500 extra. 500 rupees extra, because they are not understanding the value of it. But at the same time, a normal consumer walking into a retail shop, a retail showroom, is actually not aware what the sustainability word means. So he's required to be educated by the means of the value of word sustainability, because every youth, I can say, or even most of the elders also, educated and elders also, but otherwise most of the youth want to support environment, want to support economy, and they are more human at heart if you go down in deep. If you tell them that, hey, by buying this you're paying 500 rupees extra, and this 500 is going to support 2 poor person working in the village, or 1 person by means of getting an education, or something else that you're supporting towards environment, that it is reducing carbon footprints by this much percentage, it is doing this much by this much percentage, I'm sure he's going to pay that 500 rupees extra. But if he is not educated, he is not going to pay. So typically those works are done by some companies, but to the consumer level, it is not educated this much. If a consumer is educated, believe me, they will be ready to pay. Recently, with the natural dyes, addressing these two, we introduced these kind of tags. If you can see in it, it has got a QR code, and that QR code is scannable. Once you scan this, it takes you to the website. There it tells that if it is a pomegranate fruit print, from where it has come, what are the health benefits of it, and from where it has come to AMA, and how AMA have processed, and to whom AMA has sold, and where they are selling. All the information, if our forward chain agrees, it can be inbuilt into all these things. If they don't, at least up to us, we have already inbuilt into it, so they can understand. And when they understand that, typically, if you talk of comparison, for example, you're buying a blue jeans, which is made of indigo dye, a jeans which is made of a chemical indigo dye, and jeans which is made of a natural indigo dye. Typical consumption in making 1 kg, one garment of jean, it consumes about maybe 8-9 grams of indigo from chemical origin, and maybe 15 grams of indigo from natural origin. And when you compare it as a parallel, making of 1 kilo of chemical indigo causes 10 kilo of carbon dioxide footprint more than the natural indigo. And whereas when you produce 1 kg of natural indigo, the carbon footprints are reduced by 680 grams. It is confirmed by life cycle analysis. And at the same time, making of 1 kilo of natural indigo gives 1 day wages to 2 people, or 2 people gets 1 day wage. So typically, this is the kind of a data that is required to be narrated on the label. And once a consumer understands that, I'm sure he can pay a little extra. Without revision of that, typically, if I share with you a very interesting data, fortunately I have it. I didn't know that this question is going to be asked to me, but I have this data with me, so I would like to share with you about the prices of the garment increase all over the world. This is a McKinsey data that I have with me. If you talk, this is country-wise. I'm talking of different countries, where the data is from 1995 to 2014. The price increase in textile versus price increase in other commodities. That can be any. If you talk of a Brazil, the increase in other prices over this period, other product prices are increased by 247%. Whereas the textile product prices are increased by just 133%. So it's less than the other commodities where we need to invest. In China, the increase in other commodities are by 53% over this period, and in textile, it's just 38%. In Germany, the increase in other products are by 33%, and in textile is 10%. In India, in other products and categories, it's by 272%, and textile is at 156%. And in South Africa, it's 187% in other products, and in textile, it's just 33%. And the worst comes from United Kingdom. United Kingdom, the increase in the prices of other areas, other products are 49%, and in textile, it's reduction by 53%. It's a reduction by 53%. And in United States, it's increased by about 55% in other commodities, and in textile, it's reduction by 3%. And this is the data of McKinsey, well published on the net from the period of 1995 to 2014. Now, how come we give them a sustainable product? This is a game. This is the problem. So if we want to give them a gold and we want to charge for the silver, it's not possible.
Right. So you think that these markdown prices will not be applicable, and a little bit of sustainability premium, what I would consider, would be passed on to the consumer as well. Right.
Yeah, it has to be passed on to the consumer, and consumer is to be educated that why is it costly and what benefit is going to get, what his generations are going to get, what benefit towards health, what benefit towards environment, what benefit towards economy, what benefit towards ecology. All when definitely displayed on a label, you can get this premium without any doubt.
Sure. I mean, that's absolutely correct. And my next question would be to Mr. Naresh Tyagi. How crucial do you think it is to raise the bar on supply relationships and shift to equal partnerships, specifically in the apparel and fashion industry, if we count?
Thank you, Dipti. If you take that apparel value chain or any business, supplier are always a partner, and they are integral part of your business value chain. Without supplier, no company can succeed. And in that way, suppliers are very, very crucial to bring not only growth, but sustainable growth. When I say sustainable growth, it doesn't mean only economy term. It's basically all well-round growth. And when I say all well-round growth, even current context of COVID, you can take simple example. It's not survival. Sustainability is going to change from sustainability, what used to be 1 decade back as a gimmick, is more part of business DNA. It is your ability to sustain. How ably you can bring your supplier and supply chain. One side you have upstream and downstream. How you can balance both and build capability to sustain in longer term. And this kind of situation has taught us even much more how critical each partner and actor in that value chain is important. And in that, I think supplier, if we take earlier, if you see garment as an industry, more or less one side is your market, which was Western world, and other side is your supply chain, which is Asia.
True.
And there was not right integration of your brand and consumer, one side, and other side your supplier and supply chain. So now with sustainability, I think much more integration is required. We, as a Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail, we are in Asia geography. We are mostly in India and South Asia. We have very good control in terms of supply and supply chain. And if I give you some of the example, how we collaborate with supplier as a strategic partner, as a competitive advantage, because until unless you move beyond transaction to transparency and trust, you can't work long term. So to work in that long term and build sustainable supply chain or value chain, I think the 3-4 critical factor which you have to bring. One is that you have to bring collaboration in a manner where it is much more transparent and beyond transaction. Second, getting that shared value. You can't upcharge one side and not pass on to consumer, or you take from consumer and not to pass on to supplier. So you have to bring that share value where you see end-to-end transparency in that sustainable supply chain. And one of the things which I have seen is that whenever you talk about supply chain, people talk about cost. No one talk about wastage and rejection. No one talk about that value add.
Right.
In our own understanding and philosophy, what we found when we work closely with supplier, when you work with your strategic partner and openness is there, you find that you are saving a lot in terms of cost advantage. Many example I can give. We have that something called green channel partnership, where in green channel partnership, our dependency on supplier is so high. Uh, Whatever come from supplier, it goes as it is without any testing, inspection, or any stoppage in that. So removing that duplicacy of the process, removing that rejection, removing that wastage has given so much value to supplier as well as to us. I think from rejection of 5 to 10%, today we are in decimal. And that green channel partnership has bring kind of speed, agility, and cost advantage.
Right.
And in that context, we found that more you are open, more you collaborate with the supplier, better you get. Your product development, your innovation, your cost cutting, all is added value when you partner with supplier as a key strategic partner rather than just supplier. And I will extend that point Mr. Yawer Saha raised, is that how we pass on or how we orient that customer to pay higher for that sustainable product. In my opinion, that there are two market. One is developed market, mature market, where consumer is willing to pay extra premium because awareness is very high. All that brand visibility system, public opinion, and advocacy, and regulatory system is all ecosystem is so mature. They are willing to pay extra premium. In market, emerging market like Asia, like India, still it is long way to go for creating awareness to consumer, creating more education to consumer. I think in India we have taken that leading position to orient consumer on sustainable product. One of our good example on that supply chain transparency, we have launched a product called Archino, and Archino is made from that herbal dye. We did R&D with one of the leading chemical and dye company. It took 2 years to come to that level of commercial launch. And then we made textile, then we made garment, and that product, even for communication, we have the QR code. Even you can know from this product is source, how it was made, who is designer, who is manufacturer. Even that has become kind of communication standard for the product sustainability, even in UNEP, when they were releasing the guideline. I think it's still long way to go in terms of educating consumer and ask for premium. But I think good progress is happening in that. And consumer is now start seeing value because of IT enabling and platform like LCA or product life cycle management, which is adding value. And we are seeing a lot of efficiency improvement as well as collaborative way, which is bringing whole supply chain as a sustainable along with material sustainability.
Right. So as you correctly mentioned that a lot of times we see that mostly the brands are from the Western side and the manufacturers are basically from Asia and other regions. So, and during the March-April time when the lockdown had just begun in India, we also observed that Bangladesh orders were cancelled, Indian orders were cancelled. At that time, a lot of Bangladeshi companies who had been investing very, very strongly into sustainable models for denim were not supported by brands at that peak point of time where they needed that support. So do you think that in going forward in the future, it has to be crucial that large manufacturers or and brands and retailers stand by their suppliers during these testing times like a pandemic like this?
I think that it is whole value chain. I think if brand and retailer are not supporting the supplier, then it is one-sided. Because you find that earlier it was more compliance-based activity. Now it has matured from compliance-based activity to more capacity building and more sustainable business continuity. For
Right.
business continuity, I think it is very, very important. Brand and supplier has to work cohesively,
Absolutely.
because without ethical sourcing, you can't cancel order all of a sudden.
True.
And other side, you can't give order if your offtake and consumption is not being fueled by consumer. So I think one side that getting back to that responsible consumption and business continuity, but other side that supporting supplier and getting them into that supply chain as a partner, not as a transaction base. This order I am giving, you supply it. No, it
Yeah.
has to go beyond that order and transaction. And in my opinion, I think a lot of trust deficit in that manner because of COVID and order cancellation. If you have that strategic partnership, and if you have that integrated supply chain in brand philosophy, then these kind of trust deficit will not happen. So ethical sourcing and integrating supply chain is the only way to bring collaboration and to bring business continuity. And I think that both sides it has to be responsible stewardship. One side brand is responsible to have continuity of business and to create order demand through consumption-led economy. And other side, supplier has to also understand in that critical time, lot of agility is required, lot of change is required, lot of collaboration is required. So I think it is uh, both side win-win situation if they join hand and they make it as a sustainable collaboration rather than just transactional based order based
Right.
relationship. So relationship is very crucial to take it to beyond transaction and make it more trustworthy and I would say that sustainable growth for both supplier as well as retailer.
Right. Right. That brings me to my second question to Mr. Anurag Gupta. It is important to map social and environmental impacts of a sustainable value chain for a planned approach. How feasible do you think it is in the Indian ecosystem when we're talking specifically for India as such?
Well, it is very important, no doubt about it. Mapping does bring you to conclusions, so it will have to be taken up. It will have to be made feasible. So to say that whether it is feasible or not feasible, I think the point is how to make it feasible. Because to say, well, you can't give it up by saying that it is not feasible. We know that it needs to be mapped, it needs to be quantified, it needs to be tabulated, the data, so that we realize how important it is. Now, when we know that it is important, then we come to the next challenge, how to make it feasible. I believe that most of the templates for mapping are there. They were there in the Western world for quite some time, and now they are already there in the larger corporates and the organized sector. So adapting them to the unorganized sector or the smaller corporates and to be able to do it is not that big a challenge. The challenge probably is somebody who gets down to do it, getting somebody to do it. So whether we get together as an industry association, we get together as a government sponsored project, or we get together as a research association, that is something which we need to debate and see how a movement can be created that the mapping is done and done as soon as possible.
Right.
Because we can't turn a blind eye to the disadvantages of a non-sustainable production process. We just have to choose whether we want to do it right away, having learned from the losses that maybe have been suffered by other advanced countries before they chose sustainability.
Hmm.
Everybody has gone through that phase in life, Europe, China. Ultimately, they've realized that they have to come back to sustainability. Now we have to choose our path, whether we want to first suffer and then choose sustainability, or learn from what they have suffered and try and choose sustainability a bit in advance. The only argument which comes against this is that we need to grow our business and the cost does not allow us to grow our business.
Well,
But
for
over
that,
the years, I've seen that the cost is not so big. It is just a matter of making choices and trying to overcome them. The cost is not so big because once we start running it and we start realizing that if there are costs on one end, there are savings on the other. So ultimate, and as the sustainable process gathers steam, becomes bigger, becomes more commonplace, certain scaling advantages also start coming in within the limitation of it being sustainable. So mapping is very important because that will bring more data to the industry, to the government, to the common man, and that will bring about the thought change that whether the customer is ready to pay or not. Once all those data are out there, lots and lots of more people will be ready to pay. Once the data is there, the government will be ready to spend more to help offset the cost or create infrastructure. Once the data is out there, the industry will realize the importance and start investing. And once you start investing and scaling up, the cost automatically starts becoming lesser than a small
yeah, no,
scale
because
project.
as we saw during the first 6 months of this year also that the sourcing destination changed from China and a lot of business was expected to come to India per se for textiles and apparel. But we also have a very, very strong backward linkage for the entire textile value chain in terms of manufacturing of fibers and yarns and fabrics. Unlike Bangladesh, which is dependent on China. Yet we were not able to take full advantage of that because I would say the processes or the entire system is not as mature as the Western countries need it to be. So, do you think this is the right time for us as an industry to push this to the Ministry of Textiles or to convince them that this is the time that everybody industry should be focusing on making it sustainable in the next 5 years per se, that at least we come up because we've seen competitors like Bangladesh and Vietnam rising their exports of finished garments, even though their dependency on the raw material is very high on other Asian countries. But still, it is able to do much more better than us than India per se.
See, when we look at Bangladesh or Vietnam, they have certain, advantages which probably may not be there for us. Every country has its own strengths. Bangladesh may be there because they have certain preferential agreements. It may be there because the cost of production in terms of labor is lesser, and this is a labor-intensive industry. So if we keep on mapping ourselves with Bangladesh, how much garment they have sold, how much garment we have sold, we'll probably never be able to look at things in the right perspective. What we need to do is, what are our strengths, how we can market them, and what additional strengths we can build up. If you can build up strengths in terms of a more sustainable value chain, that itself is a big advantage or a draw for a customer who is looking for garments which are sustainable.
So,
If you can build up your strengths in more technical textiles or technically produced technical applications, that again is a strength which may not be easily available. We have such a big knowledge base in textile.
right.
If you can have more innovative products, if you can have newer modern technologies or more intricate products, So we have to find our own niches. You can't be saying that we want the same business which Bangladesh is getting. We have to have our own business, we have to have our own model, we have to have our own advantages, we have to have our own strengths on the basis of which we are going to market. And of course, I am saying it again, sustainability with the Indian ecosystem, I think over the last 10 years, there has been already quite a big push from the government, from the brands. There has been a pull from the brands in terms of sustainability. There has been a push from industry to start looking at it more seriously. There has been a push from the government to push for pollution control, and most of the things are somewhat in place, if not 100%. So today, I think we just need a very small push to be able to market ourselves as a country which is producing very high quality garments, sustainably produced garments, integrating ourselves into the whole value chain at a much stronger footing than just looking at Bangladesh or Vietnam in terms of what they are producing or what we haven't got. So there are totally so many segments in the market which you can decide which ones to take up. Those who are working on those areas, I think they still have sufficient power.
Right. Mr. Shah, my second question to you would be, that a lot has been talked about natural, environment friendly dyes for the textile printing industry. Do you think adaptability of natural dyes or herbal dyes in the industry, which the millennials really favor, naturally dyed clothing, will be possible on a very, very large scale?
Well, ma'am, thank you very much for asking a direct question about natural dye. I was waiting for it. So, in fact, this is a very common question asked. But my first reply to that is that if we think that the natural product cannot be produced at large, then we had to see how we get the wheat which we eat every day or rice that we eat every day. It's the necessity that made you produce. Just to give you an example, when we entered into the industry in 1996, indigo, the natural indigo, which is still the largest selling dye stuff, was produced on just 200-300 acres of land in India. Today, it is cultivated on 15,000 acres in India. The reason is demand. When there is a demand, then you have a solution to it. When the demand increases, you can do it. Many a time, people ask that, okay, I need this much. When can you give me? I have a scheduled plan. If this is the dye stuff, I need this much of a gestation time, and then I will be able to do this. Sir was talking about the supply chain. Supply chain is obviously a key to any industry, and you cannot build yourself unless you have a good supply chain. In natural dye, obviously, the background of your question is also because all the raw materials are natural, and how do we get those natural raw materials, and are we doing deforestation, or are we giving are we using certain crops which are meant for the human consumption otherwise in the dye stuff area? So we are not doing that way. In natural dyes area, the biggest challenge is to manage the vendors, because many of our raw materials are coming from forests, which are like raw wild collections. Many of our raw materials are coming, which are industrial waste. Many of our raw materials are there, which are cultivated. Mostly it's like we focus on best of the waste concept. So we are like pomegranate fruit rind that we collect it from the pomegranate juice industry. We also collect it from anardana industry, which is widely spread in India. And still a lot is available with them. So we have to give them a buying plan ahead of their season. Their season starts around September in Anar. And this September season, it continues till December. So this is a period where they get the maximum number of Anar Shilka. So this we have to give at this time that, okay, this much of a tonnage we will be buying in a year. We have to support them with certain advances. And then they keep supplying us on a monthly basis, and we have to consume it. And if like we are consuming X in a year, and we have a plan to sell Y quantity of a dye in a year, then Y plus 10, 20%, 30%, that's what we give them every year projection. And that's how we have been growing in the process. And also it has happened that some industries come up that we, like this year, as Sir was discussing about the orders of Bangladesh and all. So we had our products planned in many brands, and we had a program of them. And accordingly, we had asked our supplier to increase the quantity accordingly. But somehow this COVID happened and all those things, when the order got cancelled, so our order also got cancelled. So in the process, we had to tell them that, okay, wait, we will buy everything, wait. So it may be consumed over the next 1.5 years, not in a 1 year. So they say, okay, if it is 1.5 years, we need some support in terms of prices. So we had to increase. We will be consuming, that's our own process, how we will do. Or we have another system, like because we have another parallel charitable extension is IR charitable. So that is also run and funded by us. So from that agency, we support them medically, some places to their kids for the education and all that. So that's also a bypass that we plan to support our vendors, because most of them are very, very poor. They are from the villages, they are farmers, they are like that. So that support system also we establish. So accordingly, we manage them. But thank God, we have been able to manage a value chain which is ready to support us when the quantities increases. It's just a matter of time, that which dye you want and which season is that, which time is the right time to tell us that we want to increase this quantity. Then we are in a position to do that. Till now, no orders in the history of my 24 years of existence is delayed because of the non-availability of raw material. We have been able to meet the demand of the industry without any problem. And we have a sustainable model for this, where if the demand is coming, we may ask for initial orders. Okay, we will be able to do it after 6 months, after 4 months, after 8 months. But then when the time arrives, there won't be any problem. So that, like, if the quantities increase, of course, I would like to say that natural dye cannot replace chemical dyes for sure, because the dye stuff of chemical is consumed in a much higher quantity than what the natural is. But a reasonable portion of it can be done. If it has to replace, then the planning has to be done on a very different level. It cannot be just supplied from India. It has to be on a regional wise, that if it is products are made in China, we have to use certain herbs from there. If it is made in Vietnam, we have to do something from there, in Bangladesh, and so on. So that planning will be different, but feeding is possible. That's how the feeding were happening in the past. And there are a lot of researches are going on finding new sources, new researches, and all those things. We keep on talking about it. So that all combining together, the feeding will not be a problem, even if the quantities increases. Yes, we need to plan it. If you order me to today, tomorrow I cannot start.
Right. So you think that fast fashion, which was a lot being spoken about previously, which now people have suddenly started to favor sustainable fashion to fast fashion. So natural dyes will complement sustainable fashion for a very, very long period of time.
Yeah, natural dye will complement sustainable fashion, and fast fashion and sustainable fashion are typically two reverse, because fast fashion is something where you're launching maybe one pattern in a week, and every week you have new things coming to the shelf. And that happened because of the economical supplies. As we all know, like it started in 1990, as the history goes, and so on, the many brands started adopting the fast fashion categories. And the whole idea was to sell more and more. And then we have landfills, which is the biggest problem of today. And that's how the recycling come into picture. So the landfills and every wardrobe, like even if we see our wardrobe, if we open the wardrobe, there will be just 10, 15% or 20% of our garments that we're using frequently. 70, 80% are not used, but they are still there.
Yeah.
So what do we do with them? They are landfills. Like this is every house problem. So when you multiply this house to the city and city to the state and the state to the country and then country to the world, it's huge. I have data for that, but it's not a time to share. But it's a huge data. Everybody will, Tyagi sir will be having the best of the data in the world, I believe. So it's a huge data of landfills, and that's the biggest problem. And that has arisen out of fast fashion. So fast fashion was done keeping just one thing in mind: sell more to earn more. That's it. And nothing like sustainability was in place, and all that problems that Anurag sir was discussing just now that happened in China, they learned out of it, and then it happened in Vietnam, they learned out of it. They were all driven by the fast fashion thing. So typically sustainable fashion has to be there. Textile has to be valued, that when I'm buying a particular garment, I appreciate Madura, how they have been approaching the garment, this handloom products. And I know the ikat they were doing long back, and I know I connected them for this project, and many other things with the natural dye handloom product that they have been doing. So there, when the textile reaches to you, it has a value. It has a craftsmanship. It has a value. It has connected, and it has passed for so many hands. So when you buy that, you say, oh, this garment that I'm wearing has passed through 10 hands, 20 hands, 15 hands, and it has been onto the looms for maybe 1 month on a loom, or 2 months on a loom, or maybe 15 days on a loom. So it has a specific value. Pashmina shawls are so costly. It's not just that the fiber is there. It's the kind of a weave that they have. The silk carpets are costly. It's not just that because the silk is costly. It's the kind of a weave. They
Yes.
weave carpet for about 6 months, 8 months, maybe 1 year. That's how they are costly. So it's the craftsmanship, and that creates the value. So when you say I have got a Kashmiri carpet which is silk made and that has a special value, so that kind of value addition has to come, and that cannot come in fast fashion. Of course, I'm not saying that the production should be so reduced to this much, otherwise sir is going to bang me. So I'm not saying in that area. Production should increase, economy should grow, but sustainably.
Right. So that brings me my question to Mr. Tyagi now. That do you think market demand in international markets will vary significantly owing to preference of sustainable materials used in clothing by millennials? Because nowadays we see everybody from the younger side would like to initially, they will now specifically go and have a look at the tag and see what is the garment made up of, where it has been made up, what is the constituent, how it is. Now, a lot of people that I also personally meet now can differentiate between polyester, cotton, and viscose. So they know all those things, they will prefer either viscose or they will prefer cotton, but they will not prefer polyester for some reason. So do you think that the market demand, which was for fast fashion, it was varying? So Zara or H&M were giving every 15 days a new collection to the outlets. Yeah. Will that vary? And that kind of demand was also there at that point of time. But now if you see the millennials, they are not very willing to buy fast fashion. So do you think that will bring an impact on the demand for garments? Because I'll also add on one more point that a lot of times the new concept for recycled clothing or second-hand clothing has been coming. I don't know the acceptability factor globally, but not many vintage shops in US or Europe are currently selling those items as well. The acceptability here in India or in Asian countries is a little less because they consider it downsized that we are using somebody else's clothing, but the scenario is not same in the Western side. So do you think that demand for these apparels will be impacted?
Good question, Dipti. And before I answer your question, I would like to extend what Mr. Yawer discussed on natural dye. Actually, that these kind of systematic change need a lot of patience and it takes time.
Yeah.
I remember perhaps I was the early one to start natural dye in R&D in 1994. Mr. Saha might have started much later.
96, sir. We started 96.
That time I was in Nitra and I was doing that project on natural dye. From that early days of R&D, when I was working in government R&D issue, and if I see that today, natural dye, we have launched Earth Chino. Perhaps it is first time in the world someone has launched that on the scale on natural dye, that kind of Earth Chino. And Mr. Sai is well aware of, but it requires a lot of patience, R&D and product innovation.
Right.
From heavy metal to your disposal of effluent, so many other challenges. But when we launched these projects, it was so successful. I can't tell you that how it was well received by consumer. And today, I can tell you that when we launched, it was only one brand, Peter England. Today, we have same product in Louis Philippe with higher niche for natural dye and herbal dye. And same this year, we have launched for our premium linen collection in Jaisiri Textile. And now you will find even that these kind of time, even you will find herbal mask available.
Oh.
And the pure herbal line of natural dye available. So one side you have that natural dye, other side you are creating a lot of sustainable practice pressure on synthetic dye. In that whole thing, lot of detoxification has happened in that chemical industries and dye industries to match with that requirement. So one side you have natural dye, but other side you have improved a lot in terms of chemical sustainability and process. So just to add what Mr. Saha said, that there is no problem at all for that supply chain if there is a brand and consumer willing to promote it.
Thank you, sir.
Now coming to that your question with that Mr. Saha also cover on that something called fast fashion and sustainable fashion. I think your question was that in these kind of scenario with the uh, sustainable consumption in mind of a millennial and the mind of Asian consumer, how it will go. So I think a few example I would like to give. One is that this whole model of make, sale, and dispose is questionable.
Right.
It's not sustainable in long term. You have now concept of called responsible consumption. In your wardrobe, you may have 100 garments, but you are using only 20. What you will do with your balance 80? So now people are not overbuying, and they are not willing to buy until unless they know how it is manufactured, how it is sourced, how it is made.
Right.
One side, I clearly see trend of technology adding into that. They want to know how my product is being made and sourced, who designed it, who made it, who sourced it, and how it was done. And they are not looking only environmental aspect; they are looking social and environmental both. So social is also, and thanks to COVID, even that community and social pressure is much more and higher. So now that responsible consumption is a big theme because people are not just buying sake of buying it, and they don't want to buy every week. We have hardly seen that consumer in 3-4 months
Right.
shopping in our store. How you find that whole value chain sustainable and durability, which is opposite to fast fashion, is coming in big discussion. And that model of make, sale, and dispose is now so much under scrutiny and question, not only by consumer or customer, even many other stakeholder, NGO, government regulatory, landfill. Where is the landfill in India? Perhaps we are the only retail company to have zero waste to landfill. No single gram of waste goes to landfill, and everything is either reprocess or co-process or compose. And in that whole scenario, you are having that more educated consumer. You are having millennial who know that how to Google and how to know that what sale in other part of the world and this part of the world.
Right.
I think a lot of conscious buying is something emerging in this time. And when conscious buying, it comes with a lot of desire, caution in terms of transparency and ethical practice. So company side, I see that whole business model of make, sale, and disposal is going to take shift. And in that shift, I'm seeing early sign of circular transition.
Right.
Recycle, reuse, it's happening in part and fragmented manner. But now a lot of stakeholder and ecosystem building is happening to bring that whole concept of circularity and recycling. One side you will have that make, sale, and dispose model to be changed to make, sale, and redesign and resale model. And it is coming in very, very big way. And I think this cannot be done in only one company or one organization. Anurag touch on that, how to build ecosystem, how to bring all stakeholders together. From if you take cotton recycling, your cotton cultivation to spinner to textile mill to garment to brand, then your post-consumer, pre-consumer, and then you have to bring back reverse logistic and segregation, then R&D, and then remaking. The whole that value chain and cycle is required to collaborate in a manner to bring that sustainable consumption. But consumer are early days they are start asking it, and I see that maybe in 2-3 year time, more and more focus on sustainable consumption and sustainable production coming in way of responsible stewardship and consumption.
Acceptability will increase for sustainable fashion, I believe, post COVID, and now that everybody, specifically the younger generation who actually consumes more of clothing per se, per pieces, are more conscious of taking that effort for the environment.
So I think more than demand and cycle, it's about that behavior change, I would say.
Right.
And that behavior change is, I think it's early start with the retailer and some of the niche company. But I think slowly it will percolate to entire value chain. And days are not too far.
Right, right. So one last question I like to address to all of you. It's a common question. That how do you think the industry, whether locally India or globally, can work hand in hand across the value chain to work for sustainability coherently? Like it has to be an effort from the fiber manufacturer side to the person who is actually selling finished garments in the market. So how do you think that coherent approach is possible? We'll
Let
start
me
with the
take that first. Yeah. Because I come last in that value chain, I think let me take that question.
Sure.
Okay.
Then my other co-panelist will add into that.
Right.
I think that whole sustainable fashion and sustainable value chain cannot be built alone.
Yeah.
And the collaboration is one of the very, very critical factor to bring a stakeholder together. Because from cotton aggregator to cultivator to textile mill, processing, garmenting, and then retail and brand. And then you have a lot of regulatory NGO, this and that. You have to bring everyone together. So I think I have that seen some of the progress in that way. Simple example is that we in India, 16 brand in India has signed memorandum of understanding with Ministry of Textile. It's called SURE, Sustainable Resolution, where brand like us, Arvind, Raymond, Levi's, so and so, 16 brand, domestic and international brand, has signed that 5-point resolution and agenda. So one way we are able to bring in India few people together, it's not competition, it's more collaboration towards the circular transition. And if you read that SURE 5-point agenda, even Mrs. Smriti Irani launched that SURE program last year. And that agenda itself cover all that critical point of consumer awareness to supply chain to SDG to empowerment and transparency. So one side SURE is bringing Indian retailer and people together. Other side, globally, we are in various forums. You might have heard that Sustainable Apparel Coalition.
Right.
And we are the early member of SSC, and they have something called Higg Index. Higg Index for brand, Higg Index for facility, and Higg Index for product.
Right.
Through SSC, we are bringing supplier, brand, and other people together for Higg Index adoption, which is even product communication also to take to consumer. Then you have Alan MacArthur, and they are working on that Make Fashion Circular. They are putting ecosystem or circular economy for textile. We are one of the anchor and key strategic partner in that forum. And they are working on ecosystem in Europe. And I told them, and we suggested that we need ecosystem in India. To bring that ecosystem in India, last year we partnered with the Avishkar Group and Dawn Foundation, and we created that something called CAF, Circular Apparel Innovation Factory. And CAF is going to do that groundwork for capability building,
Right.
creating ecosystem only for India and South Asia. And it's well supported by H&M, Mark Spencer, all Indian company, and the C&A Foundation. These kind of collaboration are the only way to bring people together. I see that a lot of investment is required in R&D and technology startup. A lot of innovator, a lot of R&D also come into that cafe. And with that, I think we are able to do that first stage. Recycle yarn is available, recycle polyester, cotton, everything is available. But how to use post-consumer and pre-consumer waste into fiber again is something which we are keen to build on. And in that way, I think one side is cost, but other side is scale, and recycle fiber or recycle material should not be over expensive. To bring that cost at par or equal to that virgin fiber, lot of R&D and lot of ecosystem collaboration is required, which is now I'm seeing that it is happening, and in couple of years this will be much more business model if things progress well.
Right.
Right. If you ask me the same question, I have a one-liner for this. Understand the pain of all and converting them into gain of all should be the fundamental of the whole, understanding the chain. Here, as Sir is defining, like Higgs and all, many things are coming. I talk from my industry point of view as a natural dye industry. Today, we have to have several certificates when we go to market our product. We are asked, do you have GOTS, do you have ZEHC, and do you have this, do you have this? I would like to tell you very honestly, right from the time when I started into this business in 1996, azo dyes was the first dye that was banned at that time. And everybody was saying, if it is not containing 20 of these amines, then your product is eco-friendly and you're done. So obviously natural dye didn't have those 20 amines, but the rest of the dyes who were having those 20 amines were failed. Then they modified and they come up with product which was not having those 20 amines, and they were passed at that time. And it was also said at that time that there are more than 800 chemicals that come in contact with the textile from the stage of cultivation till it reaches to you as an end product. And there were hardly 100 of them that were worked upon, and 20 of them were banned as azoamine. And remaining 700 was remaining, and the people were working onto it as a research. And as the researches are going on, more and more brackets are coming and more things are coming as a change. Then we have several certification. First, we had this azoamine, then it came as a sustainable textile, then came GOTS, then GOTS version 1, version 2, version 3. Now we have version 6. With every new version coming and with every new law coming as ZEHC, as MRSL, or as Higgs index, Higgs is a different theory. It's not a certification, it's a different theory altogether. But all these new things coming, they're having a lot of cost involved into it. And every chemical dye industry had to modify his product to fit to new certification. Natural dyes from the day one were never required to be modified in order to fit to any of the certification. We passed every certification without modification. It's still, we are asked for a new certification all the time. Now I have started refusing it. Recently, a very big brand, I mean, I don't want to name any brand from this stage. They asked me, we want a ChemIQ test to be done, and you have to have that thing passed. If you do it, only then we will use your dyes, otherwise the rest is okay. I said, sir, how much is it going to cost? They said that per dye, actually dyes plus auxiliary, we have about 17 products. He said that per product, it's going to be about 2,10,000 rupees as a whole testing cost. I straight away refused. I said, sir, either give me in writing. It's going to be a huge expenditure for me. It's going to be about 35-36 lakhs rupees of expenditure. If you give me in writing that if my product passes these, how much business you will give me, then let me judge if it's feasible. Else, I'm sorry, I'm not going for it. Then they organized it. Then their share was like we had just to give the samples. That was fine. Sample we give to all, and our product passed because we had to pass. So all these cost, if brands are asking us, without thinking what is the impact of it, because honestly speaking, natural dyes industry, I started in 1996, and anybody I have met, nobody has said that I'm not interested. Everybody said I'm interested. We are working, we are developing, we need this. And till today, no company excepting a few who are just startups or maybe the smaller size has been able to do natural dyes on 100% of the scale up. As the rest of them are just talking. Sir, I appreciate you and I congratulate you for this fantastic concept that you are developing, as you said. And I wish this to success because we all are after it. So that's a fantastic thing, but not many people have done it. Why they have not been able to do it? One is the cost, but cost comes secondary. What they say, Sab, we need this much of a fastness. And then with this much of a fastness, we need this much of a color. Obviously, you have been selling product with 4 to 5 fastnesses on everything. You have been selling colors with the beautiful, brilliant colors everywhere. But those colors, those fastnesses were achieved by using certain things that we cannot use. If we use, then our product is not sustainable. You allow them, I will use, then what the hell are you coming me for? You're coming me for because you want a sustainable product. So you need to sit on a strategic table and decide. Recently, I had a meeting with H&M. Now I can name one. And I'm working with them separately in H&M Bangladesh, H&M India, H&M Turkey, H&M China. I'm working with them separately for the last 2 years. Nothing has come as a commercial production. Many other brands have added, not them. They came back again this year to me. I don't want to name, but they came back again. I told them upfront, if you are ready to change yourself on the parameter of fastness the way others have changed, I'm ready to work with you, else I'm not. They had to. So if you want to be sustainable, if you want to come to that area, you have to come to that table of strategy, plan, decide what parameters can fit to sustainability, and then adopt it. Because you're not coming to sustainability, as Anurag ji is saying, it's not a choice, it's a must. And when you're doing as a must, do it with the rules of a must.
Right.
Don't try to impose your own rules, else you will never be able to do. So supply chain has to be understood. Every pain of them has to be understood. Then combining their pain and converting everything into gain for everyone is the only victory equation. There is nothing else. If you want that only, I will be. Nobody, like I tell you, on big forums, on 1 or 2 platforms, when I spoke, people started speaking different. I said, everybody wants sustainability. Is anybody ready to pay for the sustainability? Nobody is ready to pay for the sustainability. Then how can you increase it? You want me to squeeze down? Okay, give me a plan on an economy of scale. I will reduce my crop prices. I'm ready to do that. But give me that scalability. Give me that assurance. Nobody is able to. How can we do?
True.
So supply chain has to be understood. This is a very important point. And when everybody is understood, then you get benefit. Else you do not. Now I just shared you that the data of the prices increased by the textile brands in the world over a period of last maybe 10-15 years as studied by McKinsey. Is it a kind of a joke which is going on now? You're going for fast fashion and you're reducing your cost and you're asking us that you should sustain it on your own end. What is happening in Bangladesh, man? We were just talking about them. Those people, they are being squeezed on everything. Right. Excepting few areas, they're not able to make money. So there are many things which are happening and which are something which are required to be considered. So this is what my opinion is. It's a very important point to understand every part of you, else you are not successful.
Yeah, so it has to be a win-win situation across the entire value chain for the industry to coherently work together of achieving sustainability as one goal for the entire industry.
Correct.
Mr. Gupta, your views, please. You're on mute, sir. Please unmute. Yeah.
All the stakeholders have to be there is no doubt about it. But to this, I think most of the things have been said by Mr. Naresh and Mr. Yawer Ali. What I would like to add is 2 things. One, that most of the brands, I believe today, are into sustainability, whether they are there for the sake of business, whether they are there for the sake of their realization that this is important, can be questioned or debated, but they cannot escape it. They have to be a part of it, and they are there, and they will continue to be there. And slowly, I believe, with times to come, they will be there for the sake of sustainability. Even if today they are there for the sake of business, they will start realizing as newer generations come in. Governments are there. Again, they may be there because of international concerns. They may be there due to different for public image, but they are there. They are moving on it. Fast or slow, again, we can push it. Public awareness is there, activism is there. I believe that today is the time for the entrepreneurs like Mr. Yawer Ali, me, so many of us, who are there to take advantage of this opportunity. We will face challenges. They could be of costing, they could be of finding a market, but this is the time for us to be there, apply our minds, become a part of it, and there's a huge opportunity. And this is the only link which is missing in my opinion. If entrepreneurs take it up as a challenge, they can easily connect the whole chain from the government to the brand. They are all there. It is entrepreneurs who need to realize this opportunity for the sake of business as well as for the sake of life. If I give you my example, 10 years ago, we were a regular cotton spinning mill. We decided to take up this new product where we were recycling hosiery clips dyed into yarn, and there was nobody in India. No garment manufacturer had seen that yarn. No brand had seen that yarn. It was a huge challenge whether we should or we should not, but we decided to take it up. And it was a long journey, a very painful one, lot of work, lot of convincing, lot of marketing, lot of trials, lot of failures, everything went by. Today we are in a situation where we are short on supplies, and today we are in a situation where almost all the brands across the world are looking at it. Some of them have already adapted. I won't be announcing names here, but today garments, t-shirts, hoodies, jackets made from our yarn are there across the world, I guess. They are there across the world and in brand stores. So if you decide and you decide to take up all the components of the challenge, the market today is there, the opportunity is there, and it is just a matter of taking it up and not, trying to be scared of it and keep working on it. All the stakeholders are there to hold your hand once the entrepreneurs start taking up sustainability as an opportunity. We need to start looking at it as an opportunity than some pressure on us to be, because the government is telling us to do this or because the brand is telling us to do this. I feel that on the other hand, we should be one step ahead of what the government tells us, what the brand tells us, and present them with solutions even before they ask for it. And the market is all yours.
Right. I think it was a very, very enlightening session to have all of your views from all three different aspects of from three different industries which are a part of the textile and apparel industry. And I would like to thank you all for enlightening us today. This brings me to the end of the webinar. We hope this webinar was useful, and we will continue to bring on more such webinars to you during our virtual sourcing fair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, Naresh ji. Thank you, Anurag ji.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Deep.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.